I'm going to attempt to make Swalot the most diabolical mon of all time. I mean, obviously not actually, but I've got some crazy stuff cooked up, so here's how it's gonna go. So at face value, this thing has absolutely nothing going for it. Big boy's got base 100 HP, and that's essentially it. But what it can do, and which will be kinda hilarious, is go ahead and bust out the stuffed cheeks. This is a move that's incredibly limited in distribution, but it's actually super cool. What it does is immediately gives you a +2 to defense, and consumes your held berry on use. Now the funniest possible option for this, and maybe even the best, turns out to be the Starf berry. The Starf berry raises a random stat by 2 stages. Unlike every other berry raising a stat by 1 stage, an immediate doubling to a stat can be pretty solid. So now by using 1 stuffed cheeks, we can effectively double 2 stats in 1 turn. But we just kind of have to see what we get. If we're lucky, we might even roll for defense on the Starf berry and immediately get us to +4 defense, which goes absolutely crazy when we now throw in body press for damage. Using our defense stat as attack works out really well, even with just the +2 from stuffed cheeks. But aside from that, we can pull out Swalot's secret weapon, Belch. Belch is a 120 power special poison move that can only be used after we eat a berry, which works out nicely because this Swalot, stuffed his cheeks already. Plus, if we rolled for the special attack boost, then it actually becomes pretty damn usable. We can now also bust out Terra Dark, which works out well for us defensively, but Terra Dark is also going to help in boosting up our damage and our final secret weapon, Thief. Thief is a 60 power physical dark move that steals the opponent's held item. And since we already ate ours, it's a good time to go ahead and pull off a heist and take what the opponent's got. The final fun part about this set is that if anybody tries to knock off or just get rid of our berry before we get the chance to stuff cheeks, boom, Sticky Hold says not today. Overall, Swalot's a fun gimmick mon, and the synergy with all this has a chance to maybe do something. So let's get it to maybe pop off. Ladies and gentlemen, boy do I have a blob of big purple mustache nonsense for you today. Swalot is, honestly, this thing can do some interesting things. And Starfberry is an item that I've never really tried to take advantage of before, but you know what? It could theoretically do something. Is it gonna be great? Probably not, but we're gonna give it a try anyway and show Swalot some love. If this sounds like a fun time to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. It's free, it only takes you a second, you probably won't regret it. And I've of course got to give a huge shout out to this commenter for the suggestion on the Swalot set. And with that, let's go ahead and see if we can get this bad boy going. Alright, so as my opponent decides to lead off with the Tyranitar, not really honestly what I expected to see, but as I've got a little air tiger, this works out perfectly. Now, run the footage back for a second. What the hell is this hat? That's got to be the most diabolical hat I've ever seen. Now, regardless of style choices, of course, at this point, I get an Intimidate, which is always nice to start things off. And I figure, if it's a lead Tyranitar, it probably just sets up Stealth Rock. I'm going to go for the rocks of my own. Of course, I am faster, so we get up those rocks, which is always nice. And also, if this thing Dragon Dances, it's still not that bad because it's already got an Intimidate. So it turns out they are just going to Stealth Rock here. I honestly expected the Palafin as a lead, but honestly, Reptar over here really isn't that bad. So I'm thinking, first of all, surely they're afraid of, I don't know, whatever Landorus wants to do here. So I'm thinking they probably switch, and for that reason, I go for a U-turn, trying to catch a little matchup in some momentum. Turns out, though, they stay in. So, you know, Godzilla over here is not afraid of shit. I decide I can just go into the Hydrapple. That's just because I figure, you know, I could probably take an attack. I also don't really have a whole lot to switch in here, so should I have just gone for some super effective stab? Probably, but I bring this thing in. It turns out they do go for the Dragon Dance without a Terra, and I'm like, you know, this could theoretically be bad. Even at just neutral attack, though, it probably, just because of that Intimidate, it probably can't knock me out in one hit here, and then I can blow his shit's move off with a Leaf Storm. So they do go for the Stone Edge here, gets the crit. Luckily, thank God, I'm able to live with 11, allows me to fire off the Leaf Storm. That takes care of the T-Tar. So sadly, that kind of uses up a bit of Hydrapple. This thing's accidentally the wrong ability. It's not regenerated. So as I now eject pack myself out of here due to that stat drop, I'm not going to be able to come back in super healthy, but it's fine. I avoid a little bit of a Tyranitar scare, and now I decide who wants to come in here. Probably just going to go right back into Landorus. It's kind of the most expendable thing I've got here. I want to see what they bring in, and I can also always get a good taunt on something that might want to set up. So as they decide to bring in the Feraligatr, first of all, I'm thinking maybe this fella goes for a Dragon Dance too, but he might just be on a little dancing spree here. In order to stop that in its tracks, I do go for the taunt, which is always nice. Now, it turns out, though, they end up clicking an Ice Beam. Fella is working with the special attacking Feraligatr, And that is gonna take care of me. I've messed around with a little special gator in the past myself, and the thing's actually pretty sick. Everybody expects physical attacks, especially, I mean, you and me there. And now I pay the price for it. It'll be icy death. So the problem with Feraligatr is, as a special attacker, it still hits pretty hard, right? With sheer force, it gets the boost on things like Ice Beam. It can be running Stab, Muddy Water. With the Life Orb, it's not going to be able to take the chip, and it just gets the benefit from it. They do go for the Muddy Waters. I bring Assault Vest Kamala in. And while nobody truly enjoys taking a little poop water to the face, at least with the Assault Vest, I'm able to take it decently. That allows me to go for the knockoff, gets rid of the Life Orb there, which now guarantees I can at least live another one. It turns out they just go for the Ice Beam here. At first I was like, maybe they're trying to get the freeze, but then I realized that sheer force would stop that anyway. So there's no reason to click Ice Beam. They just get less damage there, which is fine by me. I can finish it off with the Body Slam and Kamala on top, baby. So sadly, they can now bring in a Revenge Switch, which turns out to be freaking Breloom. And this fella is scary, right? First of all, I'm hoping that maybe they forget about Comatose and try to Spore me. Nope, they just go right for the Mach Punch. Young Extendo Arms punch right to the log, and that is going to knock out the Kamala. So, well, that feels kind of fine. I figure now this is the perfect opportunity to go into the big man. I'm gonna bring in my little French Swalot, who, you know, has a decent opportunity to force a switch here, right? I mean, Breloom can't do much to me, which is always great. So now I'm obviously just gonna go ahead, and it's feasting time, baby. I'm gonna go for the old Stuffed Cheeks, and as they bring in Toxapex, Peekaboo is an interesting little matchup here, because as I go for the Stuffed Cheeks, first of all, I get the double defense, but then the Starf Berry gives me +2 to speed, which is generally not, I mean, out of all the stats that it can boost, it's probably the least ideal one. I can now, while I can't really touch this thing, I decide to go for the Thief. I say, bitch, give me those shoes. I steal his heavy duty boots, and I don't know how the hell Swalot wears boots, but we got him on. We put that shit on. So this is kind of an interesting stalemate matchup, right? Because with double defense, my ass is not going anywhere. I'm gonna go ahead and stay in here and see what this thing wants to do. The great part about this matchup being poison type is that I cannot be, you know, toxic by the thing, which is always great. As they go for a Hex without a status, it's not gonna do much. I'm thick on the special side as well, and we absolutely eat that up. So as they realize they're not gonna get anywhere with the Toxapex matchup, they decide to bring in the Dolphin. And this thing is immediately greeted by a big old body press. That's gonna do over half, and the hilarious part is Swalot outspeeds with my doubled speed. It turns out the speed was somewhat beneficial there. So now as they bring in the Umbreon, fun part about Umbreon is, you know, they just saw the body press. You're gonna have to probably suffer the same fate, buddy. I figure they might just go for a defensive Terra here, but I'm certainly clicking body press anyway. With that +2 to defense, it's gonna do a huge chunk. They do not go for the Terra, and they also are gonna go ahead and try for a little Curse. The great part about Swalot is everybody's looking at this thing thinking, surely this thing isn't that big of a problem, right? They think that maybe they can Curse here. But even with that defense boost, it's still in range for now, a body press to knock it out, and I'm like, hell yeah. The Swalot is applying the pressure, and we finally got this thing in a spot where it's kind of, it's becoming a little bit of a menace. So I just go for the body press again. Of course, they're gonna try, they realize that thing's gonna die. They end up now bringing in the Breloom, which is honestly sweet because body press is gonna do a big old chunk. And with my doubled speed, I can fire off a belch, and it's always hilarious to get burped on by the Pierre, bro. It's got to smell so horrible that it just straight up kills the guy, and down goes the Breloom. There may have never been a guy who is fighting for his life so hard against the Swalot here. Now, they do go into the Toxapex. They've only got 2 Mons left. So as Pex comes in, this is basically their last hope to just whittle me down, right? Again, it's a bad matchup because I can't do much to it can't do much to me, but one thing we know for sure is that Pierre does not back down to a challenge. They just go for hexes, as that's probably their best thing they can do. They now try to go for a Baneful Bunker. They're like, you know what, if that's not working, I might as well Baneful here. The great part about that is, while the secondary effect of touching it is, it just results in you being poisoned, Swalot cannot be poisoned, so it doesn't do anything there. And this is great. I'm just gonna continue to body press as my biggest damage, and while it's not doing anything, that's still fine because their Hex is not really doing much either, and we're officially in a poison type matchup for the damn ages. I do proceed to body press because I'm like, you know, I got a couple of these locked and loaded still. I'm gonna use up all my PP if it's what I gotta do, because we know that the only thing they have left is Umbreon. If I can get through this, that would be sick. They realize that this is probably not a fight that they're willing to sit here for the rest of the day for, and they head out. So that is probably the most hilarious thing that Swalot has ever been involved in, and it's funny that the speed boost ended up helping me out. Generally, when you get the speed boost with that, It's not great. So that's that's the end of that one. Thought that was just ridiculous. I had to include that. And that's now going to bring us into game number 2. And this time it's looking like, you know, it might be a little bit more difficult for the Swalot. But one thing we know for sure is we believe in our grimace looking fellow over here. So if you've stuck around this far into the video, I do appreciate you. Thank you very much. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. You probably haven't. Go ahead and click the button for me. It helps out. And with that, let's jump into the match. All right, so this time my opponent is going to lead off with the Scarlet, which is great because, of course, I've got the Floating Tiger, and this is not a great matchup if you're young sword hands over here. So I get the Intimidate. I also figure I have the option to just U-turn on a switch here, but then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to set up the old Stealth Rock, lay the groundwork for the old chip damage for the remainder of the game. So they are going to end up switching this thing out. And Randarosu is basically like, don't mind me. I will just be placing these Stealth Rocks here. So it turns out they're going to end up swapping into the Salamence here. It is going to be Intimidate, so no Moxie there. As I get up my Stealth Rock, I'm interested on what this thing wants to do. Again, the reason why I really like this Landorus lead is just because I can Stealth Rock, I can pivot with U-turn, but also I can stop some early setup with a taunt. And as I'm seeing Immense here, I'm thinking surely Dragon Dance. Have I gotten any taunts right on a Dragon Dance yet? No, I have not. I go for the taunt. It turns out, yeah, they do not. They also are going to be a surprise special attacker, does have the Hydro Pump. Luckily, with an on-stab pump, we are able to live it. And since I saw that I was faster, I can now just U-turn out for a little bit of baby chip and get my ass out of here. Still, honestly, a really valuable option to be able to switch this thing back in and get off. Intimidates. But now I'm like, you know what? Who comes in here? I don't have a great answer to that, but all I know is since this thing clicked Hydro Pump, I am gonna go into the Kamala. And that's just because, you know, special attacks. I bring this fella in. I got my vest on. We're sleepy, got our little log we're hugging, and I take a Hydro Pump, no problem. So I just decided to go for the knockoff here. I figure, you know what? I don't know if they stay in. Something's about to lose an item, or potentially even its life. Now, what worked out great is that they bring in Scarlet here. It takes the Stealth Rock chip, which is fantastic. I can now go for the knockoff, and they were not expecting the dark coverage there. Boom, just straight up knock off that thing's item and its head. So that's a dead sword hands there, which is always great. Gets rid of the power herb, which would have been crazy to see. But at this point, now they can have a revenge switch in. So look, as they bring in Gengar, I'm looking at this thing thinking, what is Gengar? There's nothing this thing can really do to me, and I have a big knockoff, and they have no Focus Sash due to the hazards. But it turns out they're just gonna go for the Destiny Bond, which is a bold move. You're down in the trenches pretty tremendously when you have to use up a Destiny Bond to knock out a Kamala. That is fine by me, as I get the knockout there. I also get cursed bodied and then brought down with it, so I'm just like straight up cursed in hell now. But as as Kamala goes down, I'm pretty fine with that. That's honestly, that's pretty damn good value out of a little koala who's not really here to do much other than just kind of be funny. But we'll absolutely take it, and now we've got ourselves an empty battlefield situation. So guess what I'm thinking? Since I got rid of Gengar, that kind of, and both ghost types actually, that opens the door for Swalot's body presses to now become much more of a problem than they would have been. So what's great for me is actually I get the matchup perfectly. They end up bringing in the Sylveon, which is cool because as they end up going for a light screen, that's fine. I can bust out a little stuffed cheeks, and just like that, we get the +2 to defense and a +2 to attack this time. So now I'm working with a little boosted attack, which is not really also ideal. Honestly, it's best off if I just get +4 to defense, but we will take it. We'll take whatever we can get here. Here's the funny part. This thing goes for a Psych Up. They're going to copy my stat changes, which is kind of crazy. Honestly, Psych Up's a move I got to start busting out more often. That's pretty wild. So as I end up going for the Thief here, thinking probably they switch. Nope, they stay in. And I steal its Light Clay. So, I mean, while the Light Clay is not going to help me out at all, at least now they don't have it. So that's kind of fine. But as they now go for a Baby Doll Eyes, that's going to drop my attack one stage. So now I'm sitting at +1 attack, +2 defense. Interesting ass Sylveon here. But I'm thinking surely they end up swapping. There's nothing this thing can really do to me. They end up going for another Baby Doll Eyes, because I don't know if they're concerned about the fact that my attack got all boosted all crazy, but as I body press, not going to do much. Belch, the problem with Belch is obviously I'm behind a light screen at this point. So I continue to just go for Belches. They're going to go for another Baby Doll Eyes, which now I'm at -1 attack. And this Swalot has been through a whirlwind of stat changes today, which is wild. And now as they realize this thing's probably just kind of wasted at this point, Sylveon, not quick, doesn't have much health. They just go for a Moonblast, doesn't really hurt. I can then finish it off with a Belch, and you just got belched to death by a Swalot. So that was an interesting matchup there. And now they can go into a better option. As they go into the Decidueye here, the thing about this is, a Thief is super effective. It's not going to be great. Obviously, my attack being dropped, but my defenses are huge. As they go for a Spirit Shackle with my +2 defense, that is going to just barely tickle, which is great because now I can Belch. Belch being my best option even through the light screen. I'm just going to continue to burp, dude. Sometimes you just got to spam the burps with the Swalot. This thing is, Swalot is hilarious because it never really does much. Just like in terms of damage, but the great part is you can't really do much to it, especially if you're hitting it on the physical side. So as I go for another Belch, they decide to switch into the Scizor. They probably saw, they're like, you know what, this Decidueye is getting nowhere quick. The Belch does not affect it, and now they can go for a Bullet Punch here. Physical side literally healed me. That doesn't do a damn thing. I can now sit on it with a Body Press, and we get some big old damage with that. So now I'm just mashing Body Press here. Funny part is they go for a Thief, which would have been absolutely hilarious to steal their Light Clay back. Nope, you can't have it. I'm Sticky Hold. The most hilarious sequence of events happens whenever you pull the Swalot out. You cannot thief your own item back, and now I just decide to Bullet Punch again because my last Body Press didn't kill, but I can pick it off with one more. So, you know, down goes the Scizor. I kind of do fuck with the Technician boosted Thief, by the way, but doesn't work on the Swalot, which is funny as hell. And now they go back into the Decidueye. The great part about this whole setup was they don't have anything to hit me on the special side. The Gengar was their best option against this thing, but they go for another Spirit Shackle. Can no longer escape, but guess what, baby? We are not. It's you who should be worried about escaping because I can go for another Belch here. Doesn't quite knock it out, but I should be able to take one more attack here and then kill it, pick it off with one more Belch. And if you thought this match was already ridiculous, check this out. I go for the final pick off Belch. It lives it with one. I'm like, what the hell just happened here? But he's got the Focus Band, which is an item I completely forgot exists. He got the random roll for it to just live an attack, which is rude, first of all. Swalot really could use any and all knockouts it can ever get. But now it lives at one with a funny-ass item, and Sucker Punch is able to pick me off. So that's got to be about the most wild sequence of events. And the game is not quite over, but we're determined to avenge our fallen Swalot boy. So I decided to bring in the Vivillon here. That's just because I figured why not? If they go for a Sucker Punch here, just expecting to die, I get up a free Quiver Dance, and then just like that, we're having a fun time just finishing off the game with the Butterfly. Now instead though, they do not go for the Sucker Punch. As I Quiver Dance, I'm sitting here just staring at damage as they end up going for Pluck, which is funny. That's gonna be able to hit me super effectively, puts me in range to where now a Sucker Punch knocks me out, and I'm like, damn it. Nobody wants to go for what I want them to on this damn Butterfly. So I figure instead of wasting this thing, just dying to a Sucker Punch, which we saw that they already have, and I can just bring in the Landorus here to essentially just get an Intimidate, but also more importantly, either force them to touch me with the Rocky Helmet and die, or I can just pick it off and clean it up with a U-turn. If they want a Sucker Punch, they're going to die anyway, because again, I am Rocky Helmet. So I already have my Stealth Rock up. There's nothing really else I can click here. I just go for the U-turn. They do end up clicking Sucker Punch, which is fine. Doesn't knock me out, which is great, but it does knock them out with the Rocky Helmet. So you touch the pointy helmet, you pay the price, and down goes the Decidueye. So now, as I U-turn the air, as there's nobody there, their final mon is going to be the Salamence. So we've already seen to have the Hydro Pump. It's going to be special attacking, at least I imagine. And this thing comes in, does take some Stealth Rock Chip, and I am determined to hopefully not absolutely fumble the bag here. So I figure, you know what, I am probably best off. I don't need to taunt. We know it's not going to be Dragon Dance. I can go for a U-turn here and essentially just switch into something like the Vivillon, just so that I can get a little revenge switch in. And then looking at it, as long as this thing has no way to boost like crazy, we should be in a safe option to allow the Hydrapple to win the old Dragon matchup. So I bring in the Butterfly, just immediately drowned via Hydro Pump, and that it's a bad day to be a Pokeball boy there. So down goes the Viv, but that's all I needed to be able to bring in the Revenge Switch, which is going to have to be Hydrapple. Really, honestly, Landorus can't touch it. Blaze cannot touch it. So I'm kind of down to, I'm down to the Apple being my best bet here. So also the great part about Apple is I do still have my Terra. And while I know this thing's probably going to like Draco Meteor me, that's going to hurt. But I can bust out the Terra Steel as a little insurance here and then finish it off with a Fickle Beam, hopefully. I don't want a Draco Meteor in case I miss. And I figure a Fickle Beam should do the job close enough. And if it doesn't and Hydrapple does go down, I then feel like Blaziken is at least at a point to pick it off. So I go for the old Terra Steel. I put the axe on one of my main heads. And it turns out this thing clicks Fly. There has been crazy, you never know what the hell people's next move is going to be today. And they've got the Fly. They bust out the mix attacking Salamence with Fly. And obviously I now miss. But luckily being Steel type, I can now take that easily. And then the Fickle Beam is going to go all out, which is satisfying for the old final attack. And that is going to fire my laser right into that fella for the W. So that's the end of that game. Another ridiculous match. And that's just how things go when you're working with a weird-ass Swalot, honestly. And, you know, if you thought that the weird shenanigans were done with, you are incorrect. Because I have one more match for you, and things do remain weird. So, you know what? Let's just go ahead and get into it. All right, so this time my opponent's going to lead off with the Ogerpon Wellspring, and I switched things up a little bit here. I decided to go with the Hydrapple on the lead here, just to see if I can get myself in an early position here. I know I obviously should be able to take an attack, and then a Leaf Storm not only hurts, but it also covers for if they switch, and then my Eject Pack will allow me a matchup. Now, it turns out they're going to go for probably their only neutral attack, being Zen Headbutt there, which doesn't do anything, as, you know, I get some big old damage with the Leaf Storm, which is sweet. That then activates the Eject Pack. I am regenerated this time, so I'll come in full health. But now I have a decision to make on who I want to go into. Now, I decide it feels too early to go ahead and try to Quiver Dance with the Viv. It also feels like I can't really go Swalot, worried about the things like the Zen Head. But if I get flinched like once, I just lose too much health. The problem with Swalot is that it doesn't have any recovery, and it just, if it whittles itself down early, you have a bad time. So I end up going into the Landorus because I can Intimidate and get up my Stealth Rock, which is sweet. But as they go for the Ivy Cudgel, that does a ton of damage, and also doesn't activate Rocky Helmet, which I didn't even really realize. But as this thing turns out to be an Adamant set, not plus speed nature, I can now just outspeed and go for a U-turn, which picks it off, and that always feels pretty nice. So bad thing about the U-turn kill is now I have to go into whatever I want, and then they can see that matchup. So I figure the safest bet is probably just Kamala. You know, I go into the little koala here, we're looking adorable, and we get to see what they want to do against this thing. Great thing is, nothing really threatens Kamala that much, other than this guy. If they have big fighting coverage, that's gonna, you know, that's gonna hurt. But if they don't, they're gonna get body slammed, and if they overpredict here and try to set up, they're gonna have a bad time. Now, it turns out though, they do just go for the triple arrows, and that is gonna just destroy me like a little stuffed animal. So that feels kind of rude, but down goes the Kamala. I probably should have switched into Landorus there as just a sack, honestly, and then taken my revenge switching, but it is what it is. I now go into Landorus because I'm like, hey, an Intimidate would actually also be pretty nice here, but I forget about Scrappy. Yeah, this thing does have Scrappy, and that's a bummer there. And then it also can just pick me off with the freaking U-turns, or with the Sucker Punch. I go for the U-turn, doesn't end up happening. Sucker Punch destroys me. And just like that, well, I get some Rocky Helmet chip. Now, at least I have a safe revenge switch in, but goddamn it, this thing is hurting. So as I'm looking at it, I decide to go into the Viv. Once again, I'm thinking to myself, surely this thing does not want to stay in on the threat of a 4-time super effective flying attack. So I can go for a Quiver Dance. If I find myself in a spot where I Quiver Dance for free, it's gonna be bad news for him. But as I Quiver Dance and they also do not Sucker Punch or switch, turns out they go for the Pluck. I don't know what it is about people using Pluck today, but ouch. That shit hurts, and then now I'm in range for a Sucker Punch to kill. And this is weird that it's happened twice that I've found myself in a situation with this damn thing versus a Decidueye, and it's not going great for me. But I figure, you know what, now feels like a good of a time as any to just go into Swalot. Probably should have just gone into Swalot early, but it's fine. I bring in this thing now. As they try to Sucker Punch there, it's gonna fail. And now one funny part is, as they go for the Pluck, that would be bad news if they steal my berry. But guess what, baby? We're holding on to that shit tight. I've got that sticky hold. It's not going to work, and now that allows me to stuff cheeks, and just like that, we get to see what we get. We roll the dice here. I get the defense, and then the Starf Berry is going to boost our attack. So I got +2 attack, +2 defense, ready to start belching. Now, they are just going to Pluck again, as that's, you know, not going to do anything now, especially that I've got my defensive boost. And as this thing just stays in, the Burp of Death is able to finish off the Decidueye. So that's hilarious. Swalot is now set up. I'm at relatively good health. We've already got a knockout, and we're having ourselves a time here. So as they now bring in Mew, this feels like a good a time as any to go for my little Terra Dark. Surely, I mean, you never know what Mew is going to do, obviously, when knowing every damn move in the game. But one thing is, if they go into it here, they probably are just going to have some type of psychic coverage. So what I can do is bust out the old Terra Dark, and you will not like Swalot when I'm evil Swalot, baby. I put the spiky dark thing on my head, and now a psychic comes through, does not affect me. And what's also great about this is now that's going to end up boosting my Thief. So I've got a +2 attack, Terra boosted Thief. Does not end up knocking it out, but what it does do is steals its item. I steal a hard stone. Now the first thing I think about is, what the hell is a hard stone? I cannot steal a valuable item for the damn life of me today. Turns out Hardstone boosts up rock moves, and as this thing goes for an ancient power, I guess that's why they're Hardstone. Hardstone Ancient Power Mew is certainly a choice, but you know, that's fine. I'm able to knock it out, which is satisfying as hell. Down goes the Mew. Swalot just killed the Mew, so we will absolutely take that every day. But now they can bring in the Annihilate, who now does have a super effective Drain Punch on him. He doesn't do much because that defense boost, even with super effective hit, that's not going to hurt that bad. And as I end up just going for the Thief is really my best damage here, just because it's Terra boosted and I have +2 attack. It's not going to do much. Yeah, you know, Swalot is not going to do a whole lot. But what it does do is stays alive a lot of the time. Sadly, however, one more Drain Punch is going to knock me out. But I still feel like, hey, we got some funny value out of Swalot. I was able to stop a Pluck with Sticky Hold, kill a Mew and a Decidueye. That's a good day if you're Swalot, honestly. There's oftentimes that's more than this thing's going to be able to do. So now as I'm looking at what I've got left, I figure, you know what? Vivian, whatever it is, this thing, it does have an opportunity to do some damage even without a Quiver Dance. And that's because I can connect on a Hurricane because of Compound Eyes, luckily, and that's going to be able to just straight up knock out the Annihilate, which is incredibly satisfying. This thing does not hit very hard without a Quiver Dance, but sometimes you just need a big ol' hit, and that does the job for us. So at this point now, they've got 2 Mons left, I believe. It's going to be the Wigglytuff, along with a Poliwrath in the back. So my best bet is just to go for a Hurricane here. It probably knocks me out with an attack, so I'm just like, I'm going to get some Hurricane damage, maybe a Confusion. Well, I don't get the Confusion, I do get the big old damage there, which is great, and the Wigglytuff is going to finish me off there, which is fine, because now I've got this thing in range to go down to Blaziken, essentially, and as Hydrop was my only thing in the back, I'm mildly worried about what this Poliwrath is cooking in the back. So I decide, since I can just take an attack from this thing, I'm going to go for a Focus Energy. Literally, why not, right? That'll allow me to then hit the Poliwrath with a little critical hit close combat and then profit. So it turns out Wigglytuff gonna go for the Terra Water, a little Fountain Tuff, nothing like a little marshmallow with a fountain on its head. I am gonna focus energy because again, I should be able to take any attack this thing wants to throw at me. I guess a Terra Blast would be not ideal, but turns out they go for the Chilling Water. Terra Boost, it's gonna hurt a little bit. It also drops my attack 1 stage, but since I'm focus energied, I'm gonna get critical hits on every attack now because this thing's insane. If you haven't seen the Blaziken video, go check it out. I can now go for the close combat that will finish off the Wiggly, especially with the crit. And now Blaziken's in a position to, all I really need to do is get enough damage on the Poliwrath to where the Hydropple can finish it off. And I'm still kind of afraid, but the great thing is, you know, I'm speed boosted. I'm gonna be faster than the Poliwrath. I'm gonna be able to hit it with a critical hit close combat, and that should do a lot. Well, it's not going to quite kill it, but it comes in glistening, looking shiny and smooth to the touch, and I'm just going to go ahead and punch the shit out of it. Now, it does barely hang on. I get the crit, obviously. It barely lives. That's also going to put it in range to where it's going to go ahead and pop a berry. It's going to be an Ogwav berry, I think, right? Why the hell? But he's got the Ogwav berry. Regardless, it heals him a whole bunch, and then it finishes me off with an Earth Power. So we're dealing with a little special attacking Poliwrath. And now things are getting a little interesting. Bad news is Hydropple is slower than Poliwrath, right? I also can no longer go for a Terra because I used it up on Swalot. So my Terra Steel is out of the question. And now it becomes, do they have Ice Beam and can I live one? I go for the Leaf Storm here just as my best bet. They go for a Blizzard, but it misses, which is hilarious because Blizzard would have certainly killed me and a Leaf Storm is going to be able to finish it off. So sometimes you miss a Blizzard and ruins your day. That, it's honestly kind of feel bad for that guy, but hey, it is what it is. We're able to come out on top just barely to another just weird ass game. These matches today have been incredibly strange and sometimes I like them that way. So, you know, I don't know. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy the absolute nonsense we took place in today, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.